A friend of mine who isn't in the film industry approached me 2 years ago, and he said, "Look, I know I don't often do this, but there's somebody that works for me in this Starbucks." He said he really wants to try something new. This isn't going to be his career. He wants something a bit more interesting. So I said I'd put him in touch with you if that's okay. And I said, great. Let's let's have new people in with us in the industry. And I just started on Killing Eve, so we met the guy. He looked like he had a good attitude. He had a smile on his face. He looked like, so we brought him on. He had a good work ethic. He's now working in the visual effects department. So he came in. He did about 2 years in with us and various other location departments, and now that's what he's doing full time.
Welcome to Filmmaking Framed, your video podcast uncovering the realities of filmmaking. I'm your host, Daniel Hughes.
And I'm your host, Tom Dexter.
With us today is location manager Adam Betterton, having worked on projects like Jurassic World Dominion, Killing Eve, and Black Mirror. Great to have you with us, Adam.
Thanks for having me. Hello.
So, Adam, could you define for us the role of a location manager?
It's a tough one, that, because it encompasses so much. And I often get, when I'm out and I meet somebody that's not in the industry, they say, "Oh, what do you do for a living?" You go, right, here we go. Sit down, because it's going to take a little while. A role of a location manager or supervising location manager is to scout, secure, manage, and return so that you can film at this place again, either yourself or another crew, filming locations outside of a studio wall for a film, TV production, or a feature film, or the likes. So it encompasses all of those things. It's not just scouting. It's not just being on set. It's the start to the end of the process, if that makes sense.
So on that vein then, so if we've got a script and the script says we're filming at a manor house
or church,
yeah, or I don't know, a park, a random person's house in a nice area, a gym, whatever it is, you see that in the script.
Mm-hmm.
What's your first step towards finding that location?
For different things, your mind will go, right, you'll use different tools probably. So if it's a gym, you'll probably think, oh crap, yeah, and try and convince them not to do it in a real gym, because real gyms, many places, don't often want you to film in them. They want to carry on doing their business, find it hard to close or whatever. So a gym, you'll think, well, maybe there's a private gym that you know of, or you can recreate that in a space. If it's a residential property, you might think, okay, I've used something that would work for that character in the past that might work. Or maybe you haven't, and you think, okay, I haven't got a lot of time. Maybe I'll use an agency, and I'll use an agency that specialises in residential properties, like lavish locations or something like that. If it's a stately home or something of a bit more scale and size, then you might think, right, National Trust are going to have something for this, I think, and speak to them. Again, most of the time you think, what have I used in the past? What have I used on other shows that worked well? Because it's not just about it looking great, but you've got to think about, right, there's 120 other people that are coming with me to this place to film, and they've got 10 trucks and heavy equipment. So it could look great, but you've got to think about it being serviceable as well. So
you're thinking creatively and practically at all times.
Yeah. And then sometimes the creative bit dries up and you're like, okay, just have to go with the one that is really hard to service. But yeah, going back to the question, you use different ways of finding different things, basically, different avenues. Like I say, going back to what you've used before that works, different agencies for the right thing. Maybe you got to blow a car up in the middle of nowhere, and so you can think of quarries or MOD land or something. So where's best to shoot it as well? Where you're not going to be able to do that in the middle of a street. We're going to have to blow this car up on a bit of MOD land on a concrete pad, and then put the street in after or something. So you have to think of the practicalities of the scene as well as the logistics of getting the film crew to it. It's where can you physically shoot this? Might be a sex scene, might be nudity, and you can't. You've got to think about the appropriate place to do that.
So it can be a bespoke solution, basically, for whatever the show or TV show or film or scene is.
Yeah.
So could you talk us through? Say you've come onto a film. At what stage do you get hired? What's that process like? And then what would you start doing from those early stages of that film?
You can get brought on at different points. It depends on the production's model, I guess. Like sometimes you could get brought on long before everybody else and they haven't even got an office. And that's your first job. Find us an office. And you're like, exciting stuff, but necessary. And then maybe they want an office and they want a studio next to it. Yes, and you have to find the production base. Sometimes you get brought on, and hopefully they found that, so you haven't got to get involved. And you're brought in, hopefully a similar time to the production designer. And there's if it's a series, hopefully you've got 1 or 2 scripts to start working from. And then you would start, if there's a key location within, if there's a house that they always return to, or a police station that's at the centre of the story, or a church that's at the centre of the movie, then maybe you would start looking for that, really.
And do you, as a location manager, break down the script yourself so that you know what all those locations are going to be, and then who are you working with to create the schedule and that list?
So yeah, you do a location breakdown from the script, and then you might break that into sets within that location as well. So if it's a house, they'll move within rooms within the house, living room, kitchen, but they're all over the place. So you'd break that down. So you're working kind of between production and production designer. The director's there, but at this point you're more kind of talking to these people because it's what to present, where that can be found. Normally 30 miles from the production office that you've found. But
so you're working with a production designer, you're working with the production team. You're basically getting together your list of locations.
Yeah.
So you can start finding them. There might be some hero locations that are already there, so you kind of tick those off, and then trying to find some other locations.
Yeah.
And then the idea is on a film then, or a TV show, you're never going to present those locations to a director. And the director will start narrowing down that list, and you'll start booking things and scheduling things. And
you'll then go and you do a couple of recce's. You'd go, maybe you've got a scout, you've sent the scout, they'll take photos, come back and say, look at this place. You go, great. The designer prefers that, not that one. Let's go and show the designer. So you go with the designer. The designer looks at it, goes, yes, it looks exactly like it does in the photos. I still like it. You come back, you show the director. He goes, yeah, I like the photos. Great. Take the director. So you end up going back. The director goes, yeah, this is perfect. It looks exactly like it does in the photos. I love it. Right. So there's a lot of recce's that happen. So and some of them you might get there, like, actually this doesn't, the photos don't represent this well at all. This doesn't work. And you're back to the drawing board, and you're sending either yourself out scouting for it, going back to researching, or you can send a scout out if you've got that.
And what are the qualities that make someone a good location scout?
Somebody that's inquisitive. Tenacity goes a long way. Yeah, someone that's going to keep knocking on the door, and I've seen this great place. I think it's right. I just need to get inside. I need to get
in the building, get some pictures. I need to get somebody to say yes to the filming in principle. Someone who will keep returning to that and going back at it, rather than I sent one email last week and no reply, so I don't know what to do. Yeah, so someone that's going to really go at it and get in there really and get their camera in these places, get them people interested in our filming as well, get them on board with the ideas. Many places that you're normally going to somewhere that maybe has had filming before, but not everywhere has, and trying to get them to understand what's coming if they say yes is an important thing. You don't want to bring this, you don't want to feel like you're bringing a Trojan horse in with a, there's a good meme actually.
Yeah, great meme, I know exactly the one.
It's got we'll share that with everyone. Yeah.
So you need to be honest, that they need to have an understanding of the size of the crew that they're working for. So they need to know how to service a place. They, like I was saying earlier, a good scout will not just go and take a few photos of some beautiful places. They'll take photos of relevant places. Maybe they are beautiful, but you can also get 120 people that are coming. So they have to have an understanding of the overall process, and which can be tricky because sometimes if they're relatively new, they may not have experienced a lot of filmmaking and a lot of being on set and a lot of the logistics.
So is there a hiring of location scouts then that haven't worked in other areas of the locations department then? I guess we'll just
When it's
focusing on
busy.
scouting.
Yeah.
Yeah. You just find someone that you trust to actually do the work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So normally you can, it's a trust thing. You're normally using people that you've used before that you know are capable and have done it before. If they're new, same with any job, you'd look at their CV and see if it weighs up. But sometimes not everybody's available, and you end up using greener people, which is great because everybody has to start somewhere. Yeah.
Where would you get those CVs from?
Word of mouth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Asking other location managers, that sort of thing.
Turning to it, hopefully if I'm not sitting alone in my office and I'm lucky enough to have other members of my team started at this point, I'd say, do you know any scouts? Do you know, or get on the phone. I might find another location manager. I'm trying to find a scout. None of my usual scouts are available. Who do you know? Scouting's probably not. It's not usually entry level kind of position anyway. It's normally a position that somebody would have done some location work before, but you have to have that to be able to do it and to do it well.
Because you need experience on set to know what are the kind of servicing requirements that are going to really make an impact.
Yeah.
Yeah, you couldn't, for example, say, well, that place has a toilet. Yes, a toilet, and it's really old, and the owner says when you flush it, it might not always work. Yeah. So therefore, it's not serviceable because you have 100 extras.
That's it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. These or knowing that if that is the case, they give you that advice. So okay, here's a great place. Here's the pitfalls. You got to be aware of these. Like the parking's limited, but you could maybe and they'll give you not just pictures of the place, but a picture of how you would service it as well. They'd be giving you advice.
I suppose when you are very busy doing a lot of other work, it's also very helpful to have someone shortcut that, and you don't have to sit and work that out as well.
Yeah, and it's a bummer if you turn up to somewhere with a designer and a director, for example, and you go, right, here we are for the first. I've never been here before. This has been scouted on my behalf, and we can't film here. So sorry, guys, back in the car.
Waste of time.
Yeah, so that is a quick way to upset people sometimes. So, but they can generally say, look, there's no parking, but here's the answers. Here's the solutions. You can normally make most things work if you've got time and money and
which will factor into the scouting. Presumably, you'll say this is the budget level of this show, so we're not going to go for something like that or not that far away. and or we need to have 4 locations within one site or one near one unit base or whatever it is.
Yeah, all of those are you know great briefs for you to give a scout. You know, you're going to be telling them things like that for sure. Yeah,
And how many eighths of a page is something is, if it's done, you know, how reproducible is this somewhere else? So I don't know about you, Adam, but my least favorite scouting brief is terraced house, because there are millions of them.
Yeah.
So you can always, whereas if it's a castle, DJ booth, even a gym, like if it has something that orientates it more, the fact that, at least in my experience, there are less creative options, it pushes you towards decision making.
yeah,
Whereas with something that is so reproducible like a house, you can always go find another 100 options.
it's the hard. You're so right. The hardest things to find are the things that there are so many of. Like it becomes the needle in the haystack problem, and so it's just a terraced house. Surely we're filming it in anyone. Okay, here's one. Well, that doesn't work. It's not through. Okay, how about this one? This is not through. Yeah, but it's not. Okay, so it's not. It's never just something. Like you'll get that thrown at you. Oh, it's just a terraced house. It's just a pub.
So it's almost like someone's asking for a piece of string.
Yeah.
And you're going to go, what type of string? How thick is the string? How long is the string? What color's the string?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you'll drag them answers out of people before the scout goes out, hopefully.
So it's a longer process.
Yeah. So
I just want to quickly, so Daniel touched on breaking down something by eighths of a page, just because we're aiming this at people who might not necessarily have worked in film. I don't suppose, Adam, you could quickly just explain what eighths of a page is for a listener.
eighths of a page. It's basically the script. You could divide it into 8. So there's so many. It's
It's literally eighths of a page.
eighths
so 8
of a
different-
script
yeah.
page,
Yeah.
basically, and that tells you how long the scene is. So you'll get on your schedule or on your call sheet. This scene is 2 3/8 of a page. That's a fair bit of dialogue there. Or it's 8 pages. You're like, wow, that's going to take a couple of days. Or it's 1/8 of a page. Establish a terraced house. Like so, there's no dialogue in that. That's a camera outside.
Yeah.
So 2/8 of a page. Maybe it's 2 people have met. Hello, how do you do? And then they go inside the terraced house. But and so it just divides up how much. It gives you a steer on how much dialogue there is, basically.
So for listeners, it's sort of, it helps. Basically, the production uses it to know how long the film's going to be, to schedule it, to know how long they need to be in places. And a good location manager understands that breakdown as well, so that they can understand how that implicates on the locations.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And on which of the locations you want to find first. If you know there are some major blocks that you're going to have to work your schedule around, and then you use the kind of minor eighths to make up days.
Yeah. So when you're starting to build full shooting days, right. Okay. I know I've got the back end of a day that there's no filming happening in this house. Right. There's only 1/8 of a page at that terraced house. We'll do it on that day.
Yeah. So I'm sure we'll try and find some resources, but if not, I'm sure people can find online about how scripts are broken down into eighths of page, and we can share that. I was wondering also, because I'm sure we'll get onto this. What big part of locations I feel is people skills. So when you're talking about scouting, it's the people skills to be able to convince, like you say, an owner how that they would let you shoot there.
Yeah.
But it's also about being able to read a room. So you might get there and they're slightly standoffish. So how you approach that ask is a certain way, or you might be in an area and you have to get a read on whether they'd say yes to money, or they'd say yes to prestige if you've got particular famous actors, or they'd say yes to. So it's about reading people rooms as well as being able to interact with them.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. You spend most of your time reading the room or managing people's expectations or personalities, and knowing when to bite your lip, knowing when to, that question's not for now, that's for later. They're not in the mood for that. That's too big for them. They're not gonna.
And it's particularly important because locations deals with the public a lot more than some other departments.
Yeah, we're the outward facing department, so it's having that smile. Hello, how are you? Yeah, at 5:30 in the morning or whatever, all day long. So that if you're filming in on the street, you are a welcomed presence and not just a grumpy bunch of technicians, basically. So yeah, it's important how you present yourself, and to public that you don't know, location owners that you do know, understanding when and how to deal with them. It's very important.
I was wondering, we've sort of spoken a bit about scouting, and as you say, it's not necessarily an entry level role. You also spoke about how you might have your team with you. So I wonder if we could kind of explore what a location department team looks like. So what's the first step into the department, and what are the different ranks rising up to a location manager?
So nowadays, the starting level is marshal. Now, I would say that didn't exist when I started. You started as a location assistant, but now there's a marshal level that you could start at, and that role is manual labour and lock-offs. So moving kit and helping, either stopping our own film crew walking into the back of shot, or stopping public from doing the same. They would then grow into a location assistant generally now, whose roles are similar, but they get given a few more responsibilities, looking after the radios, booking the marshals maybe, or sourcing them. And then that person then would grow. I mean, there's a couple of different routes, but the one route is you'd go into ALM, and then you're more.
ALM is assistant location manager.
Assistant location manager. Yeah, sorry. So you're almost middle management now, and you are speaking to the council, and you're drawing up a bit of paperwork for the production, movement orders. You will do parking plans. You will actively plan and help the location department kind of figure out how are we going to film at this place? How are we going to get the crew to this house? How many parking bays do we need? You go figure it out. Thank you very much.
So those earlier roles, marshalling assistants, is a lot of on-set work and making the location work on the day.
Yeah.
But an ALM and location manager and working your way up, you're now looking the bigger picture, looking down the line and servicing the actual whole location, not just the shoot day itself.
Not just the shoot day itself. You're looking 2 weeks in advance, maybe 4 weeks if you're lucky, depending on the show you're on. So yeah, there's assistant location manager will still spend a lot of time on set, because when the film crew get to the places that they've been setting up, they will need to be present, and then they will one day turn into a location manager, and then that person's more contracts, more money talk with location owners, more managing all the people below. And maybe that location manager's a head of department, in which case they're running a budget, and managing all the people below them. And then there's if it's a bigger show, then you would then morph into an SLM, because you have many location managers at many different places, and you're at the top of the tree, and you manage those, and they manage those, and they manage those. They manage those.
So it's a whole hierarchy tree.
Yeah.
So SLM is supervising location manager. So you're literally supervising all the location managers on a job.
Yeah, essentially. Yeah.
So, I mean, just very briefly there, that sounds like, so the skill set you need to have working on a set versus the skill set you need to have talking to people versus the skill set you need to have in order to do paperwork, to manage money, finances. What, in your experience, do you find that people are able to keep working their way up, or are there people who get to sort of ALM and then find that paperwork isn't for them, and then they step back down to LA location assistant, or is the training pretty good and people can step up? Because obviously a location assistant needs to someday be able to understand all those budgets. So how do they learn that?
So
it's a big question. It definitely depends on the person, but
yeah, so stepping up sometimes, depending on the individual, it could take longer. Sometimes that person might want to take longer. I didn't race up the ladder out of choice. I was quite happy when I was a location assistant, being a location assistant, being a good one. And then I moved up to ALM. Okay, I'm good at this. I don't need to be a location manager yet. I'll be a good ALM. And then turn into a location manager, hopefully, not rush into SLMing, and be a good location manager rather than race up too quickly and not experience all of the levels
and because
and understand them.
Yeah, and every job can be different. So even if you've been at ALM once or twice, there's a lot of things you won't have come up against yet.
Oh yeah, every day is a school day. Yeah. So yeah.
So what was your thinking behind why you wanted to wait? Well, it might be obvious, but in sort of your own mind, what was your thinking at the time as to why you wanted to just?
It was slightly different. So when I started in the location department, I started as a location assistant, and it was about 18 years ago, and there wasn't as much work around, so there wasn't the chance to step up as quickly because the teams stayed the same basically. So you ended up working for the same people over 3 or 4 jobs. So you end up working at the same time because you are just their location assistant. But it's good because then you learn that trade and then you step up and then you become an ALM.
You're sort of essentially waiting for a location manager to
Die.
retire or die. Yeah. There's a vacancy.
You was a little bit, but also I was just quite happy, like I said, just learning and making sure I was getting it right, rather than I had a couple of opportunities where I could have taken a location manager job, but I knew I wasn't ready and I wouldn't do the job any justice. And I'd probably make myself look stupid, by taking on something that I can't do, or or don't have the right skills yet, or the right all the knowledge I need to know, or haven't yet sat in the room and thought, right, okay, this is how I need to read a room. That sounds stupid, but when you're younger as well, sometimes you're just learning to know when you should say the right thing.
Because you could either be really gung-ho and just saying the wrong things at the wrong time, or you could be the opposite, which I've seen a lot with marshals, where they're too shy to even ask a member of public if they could step aside quickly. Yeah. So you can it could go both ways, and you need to kind of learn that balance.
Yeah, exactly.
I think you're right. We've spoken about it with other guests, which is a lot of it is word of mouth, how you get hired up, and so you want to maintain your reputation. So you'd much rather be known as the ALM who's really good, because then they'll just bring you onto every job. And whenever even if there's only one job going, they might think of you for that ALM job, rather than be a location manager who's a little bit rubbish, because then you might not work again for a long time until it gets busy enough that they need to hire someone.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's a lot of truth in that. Your name is your reputation in the film industry. So if you do take on a job that you're not capable of doing, it's a bad decision. You do that. That then may follow you around for a little while after. Oh, here he is. Yeah, he's the guy that couldn't do that job. Right? He didn't do very well. Did you hear about him?
He tried towing something and he ended up in a ditch.
Yeah. So it can, the bad smell can follow you for a little while. It normally goes away. I haven't had the bad smell, by the way.
Because you're great.
Right.
I wonder then, so you sort of spoke about when you started out that there wasn't that many jobs, and over time, with American investment and Netflix and all the streamers and stuff, there has been a boom, especially during the sort of post-COVID, post-lockdown boom. So for you during that period, I wonder whether you could sort of explore for our listeners, what was it like working during that boom period, and how was it hiring people if you had lots of shortage of staff?
It was tricky because your old favourites aren't there, because everybody's spread amongst the many Marvel movies and the many Netflix and Amazon series, high-end TV that's all of a sudden being made. So you find that your trusty team that you've always kind of got, or parts of them, they're not there. So you need to find new people. Or step people up, which is great for many reasons. You can bring new people into the industry, give some people that don't often get a crack at it, a go, rather than it's the same old marshals doing the same jobs. You can get some fresh blood in, some people that won't get the opportunity, people that it may feel like it's out of reach. And then you can step other people up to the ALM positions, assistant location manager positions. It did probably step some people up too quickly, I think people would say. There was a lot of elevating of statuses for people, or not statuses, but
roles,
yeah. But
and
I think it had to happen.
Did you notice? I'm not going to say, so don't necessarily talk about your specific jobs you worked on, but just generally what you've heard. What were the sort of mistakes people were making because they were stepped up too quick?
Normally, it's not you hear about people that can't control their budgets. Basically, is one that you'll hear. Such and such as they've been let go because they've been stepped up, but they couldn't manage their budget. They didn't know that they couldn't see that by scouting this particular location, that the implications of that were they're £7,000 a day, and that's not in the budget for that show, so that would trip people up. All of a sudden, they're managing a £2 million budget, but it's all going wrong because they don't have that experience in managing it correctly, and before you know it, they're being let go. Because
I suppose there's a big jump from a location assistant to an assistant location manager, in the sense of, if they're really used to being on set, they could be absolutely brilliant with people, really understand the kit, be really good at talking to other departments, whatever it is. And you're thinking, this person's amazing.
Yeah.
And as soon as they step up, because they haven't had that experience looking at budgets, and no one's had the time, an ALM hasn't had time to work with them as an LA and show them that sort of stuff, then suddenly there's a whole layer of this job that I didn't know.
Yeah. Well, I guess the ALM wouldn't really be budget focused. They just present what things would cost to the location. But you're still right. They move up to an ALM. They're great on set, but they're not used to phoning the councils, and they're not used to that certain councils' expectations and lead-in times, and so they'll think, they might not realise that the location that we're filming in is in Westminster. You should have put the parking app in last week, and now we can't use that place. So these things will trip you up, but it just comes with learning and time. And you can only do that by getting going at it. So
because it has a massive impact which borough you're filming in.
Yeah.
Various film offices are more generous than others. Some have various restrictions on what you're allowed to do. For example, honey wagons, which are mobile toilets, you're not allowed them on the street in Westminster. And so that has an implication on, can you service a location? Whereas if you're filming in somewhere like Camden or Southwark, they tend to be very film friendly.
Yeah, exactly.
So going back to the scouting, so a scout would need to know that
Yeah.
you can't put honey wagons in that borough.
Yes, and as Adam said, with different boroughs have different lead-in times for road closures, for parking, for various parts of servicing a shoot. So, for example, if a location has fallen through, okay, I need to get it so that I can service this particular type of shoot in this time frame. That rules out these boroughs. Or I'll call the film officers and say, will you make an exception? I've always been great to you, and I'll love you forever. And then you see how far you get with that. And so that is definitely something that goes into scouting.
I wonder, I was going to ask a question about this, but we can just touch on it. But presumably then if you're not filming in London, you want scouts from those local areas. So if you were shooting up in Manchester or South Wales, or because they know a lot of these restrictions, or you don't?
Yeah, local knowledge is like brilliant to capitalise on if you can get a local scout. So absolutely, because they'll know not only where to look, straight away, but they'll know the council. I did when we did Black Mirror, we did a episode up in Scotland, and so we had a local team, but I oversaw them from mainly from back in London, but would visit a couple of every week or every other week, and I mean it was so much better having the local team. The unit manager knew I know that the council are going to give me this single yellow line in this time. I know that, and so they just knew where they could park, the lead-in times, and the scouts knew where to find the things as well, and they knew. Going back to what we were saying earlier, they knew the problems with them. This we were looking for a cottage, so they'd present you cottages that are in the middle of nowhere, like beyond nowhere. But they said, right, this cottage is great. It's a bit tricky to get to, but you can do it because I've spoke to the farmer or I've got a friend. He can improve the road and give you all of the right advice.
So someone listening to this, if they don't live in London and they live, in Cornwall or South Wales or whatever, that local knowledge is actually something that they can sell themselves on.
Yeah.
So even if they come to London, if they put on would they have it on their CV? Would they say, "Oh, I'm from Cornwall," and then when you're on a job and you're like, "I need a Cornish location assistant" or something, is that something that you might look at, or am I just guessing?
I guess you could put it on your CV and it would be relevant because if lots of jobs do travel out to Cornwall, Bristol, and
I guess it's that word of mouth thing as well. So you would know that your mate that you worked with, who's been a location assistant on your job a lot, is from Bristol.
Yeah.
So you just say, "Oh, I need him on my job. Let's see if he's available."
Yeah.
So maybe it's just something like a bit more subtle.
That plays into. I mean, it even plays into it in London. When you're dividing out the locations to the team. Okay, that one's in northwest London. That one's for you because that's where you live closer to. This one's in East London. You live closer, rather than have people travelling from driving past each other on the M40, on the A40.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you could do that with somebody who lives in Cornwall, then of course you're going to do it. It would only make sense.
I wonder if we could sort of transition then into sort of something that's big that we like to ask, which is how do people first get into the locations department? What is the steps they might look to try and get in as a marshal and assistant?
It's knowing somebody or somebody has to know you and know that you are looking for an opportunity or looking for this kind of work or looking for any work. And is that what you mean?
In a way.
It's that one person that I'd love to be in the film industry, but I don't fucking know how. Oh, here's my friend. He's a location assistant on a BBC police drama. They're looking for 2 marshals next week. Oh, perfect.
And if I can offer a tip, if you don't know anyone, you'll see film crews put up what are called unit signs. They tend to be either pink or orange. You see them all over London. Follow those signs, and you should be able to find where there's film crews, and then ask to speak to someone in locations. And that's how you can meet that first person.
I suppose it's also about you just proving that you're a hard worker. Because if I were thinking to recommend someone who's never worked in film to be a marshal, I would be thinking of people I know who would would turn up and would work hard. And they don't need to know what they're doing, but those are the two things they do need to have.
Yeah, absolutely. A friend of mine who isn't in the film industry approached me 2 years ago, and he said, look, I know I don't often do this, but there's somebody that works for me in Starbucks. He said he really wants to try something new. This isn't going to be his career. He wants something a bit more interesting. So I said I'd put him in touch with you if that's okay. And I said, great. Let's let's have new people in with us in the industry. And I just started on Killing Eve as well. So we met the guy. He looked like he had a good attitude. He had a smile on his face. He looked like, so we brought him on. He had a good work ethic. He's now working in the visual effects department. So he came in. He did about 2 years in with us, and various other location departments. And he enjoyed it, but it gave him a view of the other departments. And while he was out there looking at the other departments, he looked at the visual effects, and it was on I introduced him to the VFX supervisor on a job that I was on last year, and now that's what he's doing full time. So there's
But presumably you introduced him because he was a hard worker and turned up on time and did all the right things.
Yeah.
And if he'd turned up on a recommendation and been a bit useless, you probably would have just kind of not hired him again.
Yeah, he wouldn't have made it to the next job.
I want to highlight two things you said there, which is, firstly, people go, okay, but I don't know anyone who works in film. And you highlighted that young man who was able to work with you. He didn't know anyone in film, but he knew someone who knew someone.
Yes.
And you don't know who all the networks of your network are. So post on social media, go and call your friends and family, because they'll be like, oh yeah, I met someone in a coffee shop the other day who said they worked in film, or I was at my wife's networking event and I met someone who their husband does. And so it's, a lot of people get stuck on, you don't know someone, but your network is massive.
Yeah.
There's an idea that everyone is at max 6 persons removed from anyone else around the globe. I don't know if it's true, but
I suppose it's also increasing your chances of knowing someone. So, we can have a whole debate, which we won't do now, on whether you should go to film school or not. If you do go to film school, there might be some people who've then gone into the industry that might be your connection.
Yeah.
If you don't go into film school, maybe you may do a 48-hour film challenge, down your local, community center or whatever, and you meet other people who are really into film, and then eventually one of those people ends up in film, and then you go speak to them. And so it's just about building that network up. Especially if you're very young and you just meet other people who are really into film, and eventually those people will make their own way in, or if they don't, some of the others might, and that's how you build a kind of general background network, where one day you might be able to go, oh, I saw you got in to the industry, and I'm working at Starbucks, and I'm really looking to get into the industry as well. But, we haven't spoken for 2 years, but we really got on at the time.
Yeah.
Would you give me a chance?
It's here for everybody, the film industry. It's just, you just have to figure out that initial in.
And then work hard when you get there.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. You need a smile on your face, a good attitude, and a good work ethic. And then you are capable of anything within the industry. I have I didn't go to university. I left college and wanted to find some work. And like what you've just said, it wasn't who I knew, but it was who somebody else knew that knew me, that put me in touch with somebody. Oh, Adam's looking for some work. That sounds interesting. He'd probably come and do a bit of work experience for you. That was to a production manager on some music videos. And then I turned up. My first day on set was a Supergrass music video. my mind was blown. This is, all these people are here. This is what they do for a living. This is brilliant. You know, like what a great. It was such a great feeling. Oh, and you know, that's there for everybody. Like you've just got to figure out you're in, and then as long as you work hard, like we're saying, you can take it all the way to the top, baby. But
I was wondering if so your first job in was on this music video, and I'm sure there's lots of people who have never worked in film who do come in through the location marshal or location assistant route. What are the things that you think might surprise those people when they first get into the industry, and what should they learn quite quickly?
that you got to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning. You won't be back until 11 o'clock at night.
Every day, 6 days a week, maybe 7 on unfortunate situations.
Yeah. Is that can often be the gear change that separates the people that are actually, I love this, and that's not a problem. And there's, some people will go, well, this is great, but Jesus, we're getting up far too early.
That's not for me. Yeah.
I'm missing out on all of my life, not your life in the evening, but they've got things that are more important that they would like to do. It's not, the hours are not for everybody. It can. They're long days, basically. You either accept that and get on with it and enjoy it, or you accept it, get on with it and don't enjoy it,
and then look for something else.
Yeah.
And it's an industry where the nature of filming on location is you get to see these amazing places, but what goes with that is you can't control your commute.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that is, it's important to know that you when some people put us on their CV London based, and they're not really, but that you'd still have to be expected to maybe go to East London even if you live West London.
Yeah.
And all these things, and they factor into, so you're already working a 12-hour day, maybe 14 hours with overtime, and then you've also got, if you've got a 2-hour commute each side, that's a long day.
Yeah. I was working on Midsummer Murders. I was a location assistant. It was a great job. But I was living in Southend-on-Sea, and we definitely wasn't filming in Southend-on-Sea. So I was driving for like 2 hours plus to get to some sleepy village in Buckinghamshire and beyond. But I was younger then, so I could handle it.
Has it gotten harder over time?
Well, for sure, yeah.
What are the biggest misconceptions people have about locations? Both from doing first from other departments and then also Joe Blog public.
I think from other departments, they probably think all you do is organise the toilets and the parking. Right?
And the bins.
And probably don't often they'll ask you, like, why are we here? Because that location's nowhere near their house, probably. Or they don't understand all the process that you went through and all the roundabout reasons why you finally all decided collectively to film at this house in Crystal Palace and not in Ealing, right? And I think from the public's perspective, is that you probably have like this, and it is true to a point, but it's not. The location manager, the scout, what do you imagine? You picture somebody in his Land Rover driving up some mountain, chasing the sun, trying to find that perfect vista to go back and present to everybody. You might get a job like that, but actually you're probably looking for a terraced house
in Woking.
And
you're knocking on every door.
Yeah, letter dropping, or you're looking at pubs with flat roofs, or car parks, arches. But it's not. I mean, the scouting part, it is fun. You get to go and see some beautiful places, but it's not that every day. That 100%. But it is. You do get these great jobs where you are, scouting a landscape or a view that you need to find. But I think that it could be dreamt that that's all you do. You're just cruising around, drinking.
What are some of the most extraordinary places you've seen?
I mean, filming in Scotland, the views and the landscapes are breathtaking. I've only myself really worked around the UK. It hasn't taken me personally internationally. I have done some work in Spain. There was a great modernist house, mid-century house that we scouted for Black Mirror in Valencia. Absolutely bonkers place. Like, it looked like a spaceship, basically. I don't know how to describe it without showing you a picture. You would never find this place anywhere else on the planet. We went there to use it, and it doubled as California in the 60s. A real party house. There's been a few. It was owned by I think some politicians, and they used to use it to have their like massive parties. God knows what went on in there, but it was beautiful. It was great. It was massive. It was so.
That's something I always say is a trade off of you work in these long hours. Sometimes it'll be raining. Sometimes you'll be covered in mud, but you do get to see some extraordinary things and go to some amazing places. And I've been to I've shot in castles. They're actually private schools, so which were very expensive, and I absolutely would never go to there unless I was working in film.
Yeah,
and it's such a privilege to be able to go to these places, and your workplace isn't an office in Slough or whatever it is, unless you're shooting The Office in Slough.
It's great. It gives you the key, to the city. It gets you into so many places that you would, member of the public, you would never get to see these views, these spaces, these castles, these secret spaces. So it's a big part of why we do it, I think.
Can you give an example of a mistake you've either made or you've seen a location manager make on set, and what you or they learnt from it?
Something somebody said to me once that always stuck with me was, because you often make mistakes. You're a human being, right? And that's fine. We do it. You forget something, or you misjudge something, or you mess something up. It's not the end of the world. It's just a bit of filmmaking. But I got told it's not how you fuck up, it's how you get out of it. So yeah, you might make a mistake, but you got to fix it, and you got to come up with a solution, and that solution's got to be practical, and not cost the earth. So yeah, I think that's what I'd say to that. It's I make mistakes daily, right? But it's not the mistake you make, is how you get out of it and how you correct it, and hopefully how nobody noticed. As well.
It's an amazing feeling when you muck something up and your solution, people are like, oh, that's better than the plan A. And you're like, yes, that is why I've suggested this, because I knew you would prefer it.
Yeah. It was always going to do it this way.
Yeah.
There's people in every department making mistakes daily. Like you say, everyone's human.
And people are tired. We work long hours.
I always say the best thing you can do is assume everyone wants the best from the film, rather than they're all purposely trying to be irritating to you.
Yeah.
Or making it harder.
Yeah. So
they might be, but unlikely.
It's a good mantra, because people will come, especially to the location department. They arrive on set and they want things to help them do their job, because they're working in a different environment, different place every day, and it's not their workspace. It's somebody's house or a water tower, or it could be a field in the middle of nowhere, and they want things to help them do their job, and you have to smile and try and help them, because it's going to make the movie better.
And what is the department that locations work closest with?
I think I would say art department, production designer. But you're also, you're working closely with the director, you're working closely with the DOP and lighting. I find that I am normally more with the art department than the other departments throughout the process.
Makes sense.
So yeah, they're the people I'd be spending more time with, discussing what they need, what we're looking for, because what location I'm offering them to dress as their set needs to be a good base and work for their budget as well as mine. They need to be able to make the changes to the place to make it look like the character's house, rather than the actual person's house that it is. Make these incremental changes.
Is there a lot of compromising between the two departments, and where they might want a particular location and you say in the tactful way it's not possible, and they might be like, your location is awful and they can't service it, and so there's a lot of toing and froing and communicating well with other departments.
There's a lot of those conversations. No, you can't do that here. Well, this is a crap location then. Okay, let's still be friends. Because
they need to assume that you want the best, which you do.
You're offering up the best places for the show within the budget that you've got, and you're trying to make it work for them because you want to make it look great. Like, that's what you want. You want the show to look good. You want it to be a success. You want to, in 6 months' time, be sat at home with a glass of wine going, bloody hell, that was hard work, but doesn't it look good? That is good telly, that, or it's a good film.
Do you find when you watch TV shows and films that you're looking at their locations? So I suppose, especially if you recognise them.
Yeah, all the time. Yeah, I know what that is. That character, he's just gone through that door in that house, and now he's at somewhere else. My wife hates it. She's not in the film industry, so she cannot watch TV with me. Finds it incredibly irritating.
Yeah, that should be a public service announcement for anyone who's considering getting into film. Be aware, your significant others will be forever bored by you going, "Oh, I was there on that day, and I don't care. Just let me see the thing."
I've been watching Doctor Who again recently, and I went to Cardiff University, which they shoot it in South Wales.
Yeah.
So the number of times they've made Cardiff look like London. And I go, that isn't London. or the most insulting one was I was watching Peter Capaldi's episode, and there was an episode, I don't remember the season, but they were at Bristol University, and it was the Cardiff University building with a sign outside that said Bristol University. And I was personally offended. I was like, that's not Bristol. But, it's one of those things. Yeah.
Kind of a off topic, but it's reminded me of people getting their vision into the head of what something looks like. And my first location manager gig was on Jerk. Funny name for a show. And the director in question, we needed to film the whole home office because the character had an immigration issue. And he kept rejecting various options. So we ended up taking him to the home office to see what it looked like. And he went, no, this isn't what the home office looks like in my head. And I was like, okay, cool. I've understood why options are being rejected.
Yeah.
And so then I was able to pull out what he thought the home office was, which ended up being a hotel. And he was like, see, this is the home office. And I was like, sure.
Yeah. Not the thing that really looks like the thing, but
yeah.
I suppose that's a really interesting thing to bear in mind, actually, is that because they're interpreting off of the script, that they might have totally different visions. I suppose, like when you're reading a book, your take on what the characters look like will be completely different from someone else's. That's I'm just saying that's very interesting. Yeah, I was gonna say, just for a bit of fun, what are some of the do you have any interesting tales from some of the jobs you've worked on that you're allowed to say?
Interesting tales. I mean, daily, like when you're out on the road, like there's so much fun to be had. I wouldn't say messing about on location because it's business and it's serious and you can't be, but there's so many like good times that you can have with a good team with you that, and also talking again about watching the telly of a show that you've just been working on. And it's not just like, oh, I know where that is. It's, I remember that day. That was the day that the generator got stuck in the mud, and we tried to tow it out with the 4x4, but the 4x4 then got stuck. So we used the dining bus to tow it out, and we got the dining bus stuck too. And that was in Peckham. In Peckham, you got the 3 vehicles stuck in the mud in Peckham, like in central London. So when you're watching a show back that you've worked on, or a movie that you've done, like, you're often thinking of, you're taking out these little bookmarks in your mind of
The joy.
the
of
joy
the
that
job,
the joy, or the silly thing, or it might have been frustrating at the time, but looking back at it, it's hilarious, So,
always good stories to tell from
Yeah.
set.
yeah, it's a great workplace. There's nothing else like it, in the world. So if you got the right mindset and the right attitude, like, it sure beats going to work. That's for fucking sure. So you get paid still.
And you get paid good money, and you're absolutely right. I don't know how many workplaces where you could, I don't know what the equivalent would even be, to flick on the telly and remember oh my God, I haven't seen that person in 4 years. And there's a marshal I used to work with who was one day on Britannia, which I know you did, and it was muddy as anything, and it was torrential rain, and this marshal just took bin bags of everything. It was like a bionic man just wrapping bin bags and gaffer taping himself like he was putting on a suit of medieval armor, and he was like, I am ready, none of my clothes are getting muddy. And by God, it worked. And that's just, where else do you get to see that?
Silly memory. Yeah.
It sort of makes me think of a lesson which would be quite good for people to take away, which is the reason why people tend to bring the same people from team to team is not only because they're good at their jobs, but because they enjoy working with them. And there's so many variables working in film that you can't control. What the weather's going to be like, what the hours are going to be like, how the schedule's going to be affected, all these sort of things. That if you can control one variable, which is the people you work with are good, fun to work with, it's such a huge thing. And I guess when you're looking to hire people, if you can see that Joe Bloggs has worked with that location manager 3 times, you go, they must not only be good at their job, they must be really nice to work with, because otherwise the location manager wouldn't have hired them 3 times.
Yeah, no, it is important to have a good team, and you're right. If somebody's using them over and over again, they've got not just qualities, professional qualities, but they must be good to hang around with as well. It's really important to have a team. I try and structure my team on a no ego basis, so that there isn't. I don't know. Can I say dick slinging? Right?
Or an ALM that doesn't want to change a bin. Or something like that.
Yeah. We're all in it together. We'll all roll our sleeves up. But if it's great to have a team that you just adore and you're happy to see them. So every morning, morning, you want to see these people.
Yeah.
So they become a surrogate family. You spend so much time away from your friends and family. You still get to see them, and it's not like a prison sentence where you're not allowed to see anybody. You still do have a life outside the film industry, but there's a lot of time spent with your team, and if you're not getting on, that's definitely going to be no fun. Right?
Yeah, if it turns toxic or really difficult. And I suppose you're saying location manager is managing the people below. A big part of that is building that team, building the morale, keeping the trust, keeping the energy positive.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. The fun question for you: if you weren't working in locations, which department would you choose to work in?
Oh, I think I've answered this one before, but what did I say? I would caterer. No,
That they are early starts.
Yeah. Yeah, very early starts. Yeah.
What would I do? Well, maybe I'd follow the money, go for Grips or Sparks. They get paid all right. Locations get paid okay as well, to be fair. Art department? No. Unit driver. That'd be a good one. God, mate, all that sitting down.
But finding a place to put a minibus in the middle of busy London would be stressful, I imagine.
Yeah. Sensible answer. Don't know. Maybe production. If I could, maybe I could. But I think a lot of location department, especially more recently, seem to be kind of navigating over to the production side. Maybe to production manager or line producer. Some even move up to producer. So I wouldn't. Yeah, maybe I'd give that a go.
What's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
What's the best piece of advice I've ever received? Maybe it was that one I said earlier about, it's not the mistakes you make, but how you get out of them.
Yeah, good words to live by.
Yeah. I think that's the rest is like my own advice. Like just try and be hardworking. Really, in this industry, that's not really advice somebody gives you, but it's something once you step in, you realise like that's the only way to excel is to have a smile on my face and a good attitude and work hard and come back for more the next day. Thank you very much. So.
And remember what a privilege it is, even when on the hardest days, to be able to do something so interesting.
Yeah, it's super interesting. So like I was saying earlier, there's no other job like it. You get paid well to go and see places that nobody else sees and do fun things and flip cars over and jump off roofs
and meet interesting people.
Yeah, and these interesting people, you might meet interesting famous people, you interesting crew, interesting public or location owners and team, and that you will know for the rest of your life because they become actually part of your friendship group. So yeah, there's no industry like it.
Amazing. I think
nailed it.
That was such a positive note.
Thank you, Adam.
Thanks so much, Adam.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on.